Anselm, a 3D movie about German artist Anselm Kiefer. It's what you might call an experiential documentary. It manages a magnificent illusion of making the narrative disappear, yet still guides the viewer through an understandable overview of the life and work of this fellow, leaving me with the sense that I have explored this world rather than have been merely told about it. A stunning film. It is never not interesting. Perhaps the only natively shot 3D movie to be made by a high-profile director in the last couple of years. It has an example of almost every stereo scenario you might hope to see. The 3D is strong, it's beautiful, and is clearly the way in which this movie was meant to be seen. If you are anything like me, you might find yourself pausing on all sorts of random moments and drift off into worlds of thought about what you see. Though this is no sideshow, it is not meant to be paused. The camera dances, flows, and follows with both a grace and dignity behind it. Though bold in its movement, it is bold with a purpose. This is not a ride. It is curious yet careful, inquisitive, but never to the point of disturbing its subjects, at times feeling almost like we are a spirit drifting through these spaces. There is a touch of irony here in that the art is very still. Whether it be painting or sculpture, it is almost painfully frozen in time while we, the ghost, float around it. And in a way, our ghostly selves are almost like a cat swatting at a ball, testing it, seeing if there's a reaction, but the reaction never comes. And there's a feeling of death to it, that what we are looking at are remains of what exactly we are left to ponder. But in time, we learn that to a great extent, these are the childhood memories of growing up in the rubble of a post-war Germany, a war that ended when Anselm was born, forever impressed with the effect, yet never quite knowing the cause. Is this memory or premonition? Is this what was or yet to come? On first watch, I found myself wondering if this was a movie about the artist, or is it a movie that superimposes itself on the artist? Is that even possible to avoid with art? If you don't become transformed by what you're looking at, then can it even be called art? Why would you even avoid the invitation to be changed? To refuse transformation is to refuse the relationship, and that kind of visitor is no better than a John in a whorehouse. Stimulation without danger is not actually life. The flower feeds on its visitors. On a brief Blu-ray extra, I learned that Wim Wenders, the director, and Anselm are the same age and grew up in the same general area, perhaps confirming this movie is as much about the director as it is its subject. Wenders makes a fascinating statement about the 3D, that he believes it instills in the viewer a sense of time. He doesn't much expand on the thought, unfortunately, but what a fantastic seed to ponder on. I have never connected 3D with time, yet really everything we see has a time attached to it. If it's on my table, it is in the now. If it's across the street, it's in a few minutes. Something at the end of a field really depends. How valuable is it? Maybe you can make it by the end of the day. If it's unimportant, then it's lost to eternity. We watch Anselm cover much space, having A large property that's not just a studio, but an immense, sprawling art installation in its own right, showcasing a haunting landscape of headless figures and desert-filled rooms. At some point, it is remarked that the forgotten never forget, an idea which is both a crossroads to a dozen discussions, and yet curiously feels like an apt summary of all of this. The stereo effect seems to have a way of emphasizing the lost souls we see in these headless figurines. Instead of blending into the scene, the sculptures tend to become exposed by the space around them. And yet, curiously, being able to move and see past them, especially as the camera moves, feels much like seeing through them. In a way, it's very much like passing people on the street, avoiding looking directly at any particular person, always in the space beyond, a kind of willful blindness. Even the paintings are rarely flat, coated in things like clothing, mulch, or even molten lead. They have bumps and protrusions that cannot be appreciated until we get close enough for the stereo to reveal that these landscapes are bleeding out of the canvas. It's apparent early on that a camera is insufficient to convey the experiences of these pieces. For one, they are huge and imposing, demanding of space and therefore attention. Televisions, however, are not imposing. We remain firmly in control of our appliances. Our screens do our bidding, especially with our phones and computers, and you cannot grapple with something so long as it's under your control. It is only at loss of such control do we start to contend with a thing and begin to allow it to actually shape us. And perhaps the 3D here can at least let us imagine what it would feel like to be in the same room as one of these monstrous pieces of art, inside a space so large that you cannot quickly leave. You cannot just look away. There, in that moment, at that place, its place, it would have you. I imagine it would be very much like walking among the ruins of a city, especially as a child, always there, the focus of everyone's attention, demanding to be dealt with each and every day. And it's perhaps a loose connection. It reminds me of something I once heard, that someone in the hours following some trauma should be encouraged to play a simple game, a Tetris or solitaire, something simple, something abstract, something to distract the mind while the emotions are still alive. Do not let the thinking get involved. It seems a brain is like a steel structure, and feelings are a melting fire. When the two come together, the mind melts and bends, and once cooled, it does not go back. And as such is what I see here, snapshot after snapshot of various mental earthquakes, distant pasts seen through broken windows, and perhaps this fascination with chaos is a memory that it was the fire that opened up the door to these ruins. And with that, maybe an instinct, the attraction to opening them again is a hope that this time, will open the bridge home to the great before.